Welcome back. This is Sonoma Brain Trust. I'm Daren Blonski with Sonoma Wealth Advisors. I've got Chelsie Runnings with me with Better Home and Gardens, and Mary Piasta with Piasta, Valluzzo, and Haeuser.
Sure. Yeah.
Did I get it right?
Different order, but yeah, way to go.
Ooh, I got all the names though. I mean, come on now. Give me some credit, right? Well, welcome back today. Lots of changes going on, lots happening out there. Everyone's on the edge of their seat waiting for this stimulus package to come through from Congress. We're seeing a kind of a rolling decrease in COVID cases. It could be a good sign. Not sure yet. Too early to tell. And we're seeing some really interesting real estate market, I guess, trends. And we've also got a lot to talk about when it comes to foreclosures, evictions, and Mary's going to cover that. So let's dive into it. So we're starting off today with you, Mary, right?
Sure, that's fine. When it comes to evictions, I think it's important that we've got both the commercial and residential eviction issues that are here and present. And initially, when the eviction ban, also being called a moratorium, rolled out, it was for residential evictions, and then it was extended to commercial. And that happened in California in April through an unprecedented action by the Judicial Council of California. And basically that banned individuals to go forward on evicting people in both settings. And so what we have now is, as of actually today, in certain regions in California, the moratoriums that have been issued locally are coming to an end. So last week we had here in California, the governor issue an order allowing local counties and cities to extend the eviction moratorium until, I believe the date sometime in September, late September anyway. So the important thing to see here is, again, people think, oh, well, the governor did something, so that means we're protected. No, that's not what it means. It means that depending on where your property is, where you're paying rent, you need to look at not only your city, but the county regulations that are put in place, and to see if whether they will respect not only the moratorium, but whether it will be for residential and commercial. So here in Sonoma, you know, we should expect to see some movement on that probably pretty quickly here. A big important point, in addition to looking at your jurisdictional overlay for folks who are renting, in theory, is to understand that if there is an eviction moratorium, that doesn't mean, all it means is you can't be evicted, right? What it does not mean that people are relieved of an obligation to pay rent. So, you know, there are stories out there of landlords still pushing to collect rent from tenants, commercial and residential, who aren't able to pay it or have decided not to pay it at this time. And so really the common sense idea and approach is to try to work out something with a landlord if you're in a position where you can't pay rent, but to really understand the scope of your rights here. And that's it on evictions.
So Mary, can you kind of clear up, the eviction moratorium is for now. So when the eviction moratorium is done with, your landlord comes to you and wants to collect that back rent that maybe you didn't pay. If you don't pay, then they can begin eviction proceedings, right? This isn't like an eviction ban to where you don't have to pay rent at all. Eventually you have to pay rent, and if you don't pay up, then the evictions can move forward. Is that right?
Right. So if you don't pay up and the rent is owed in a place that will allow an eviction to go forward, right? Because we have all of these legal overlays that kind of look like patchwork throughout our state. Then yes, at some point in time, your landlord can pursue, after following certain steps, can pursue an eviction proceeding, otherwise called unlawful detainer. So, and it's not like it happens right away. It's not like, say today's the day and the moratorium's over. It's not like all of a sudden the tenant is going to be, someone's going to knock on their door and say, hey, it's time for you to get your stuff out. No, that's not how it happens. There's a court process, and there are attorneys out there that just specialize in this. So, it's really important for people to have their advisors lined up, to be able to know who to call when this happens. There are great free resources for residential and I think sometimes commercial folks too, through legal aids in their particular counties. And they are just a wonderful treasure chest of legal knowledge to help guide people through this process.
Awesome.
This is so critical, Mary, because one of the things that's happening this week is the extension of unemployment benefits is falling off, right? So I was just reading some headlines, and McConnell is pretty clear that unless there is protection from lawsuits for COVID in this new stimulus, they're not going to pass it. So what's that mean right now? It means that people who have been receiving the additional $600 a month in unemployment benefits, which is approximately just shy of $1,000 a month or a week, are going to lose that $600 amount, and it's going to decrease, gone. So it's back to the normal unemployment benefits, which is pretty low. The new package is actually allowing for an additional $200, not $600, if it passes, but it's hung up in legislation right now because of that protection for organizations or companies for the liability piece, which is really important, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a big week. That could really send some tailwinds if you've got the eviction stuff turning into kind of at best, a patchwork soup mess that no one really understands. Is that a good way to describe it, right?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of misinformation. And then you have folks who can really use that additional financing, so it's going to be a really dynamic time over the next couple of weeks here. And
just to give everyone a kind of sense of the magnitude of how important this is, and you've got about 30 million people right now receiving that additional $600 a week. And if they're not receiving that $600 a week and they're unemployed, the question is, can they pay their rents? Can they pay their mortgages? And if they can, then we're going to start really quickly entering into this phase you've heard me talk about on this channel called the solvency phase, right? We went through the liquidity crisis, which was that down in March, and then we have that kind of reflexive move in going into the last few months. And now we're starting to see these kind of cracks in solvency. And this could be an impetus behind it if the legislation doesn't step up and Congress doesn't pass these things. Right now, they're battling tooth and nail on some stuff. But the new legislation even goes beyond just the 200, and they say, look, we're not going to replace any more than 70% of your income previously. Well, that's kind of interesting, right? Because let's just say, for example, you want a job right now. Because there are a lot of people that are just literally saying, look, I'm making almost $50,000 a year sitting on unemployment. I ain't going to work. And Congress trying to say, whoa, wait, time out. That doesn't work for productivity. That doesn't work in macroeconomic scale. This is not, that's universal base income, and we're not doing that yet. So I'm not saying that we won't eventually, because I think the economics of the situation might demand that down the road. However, the way it is now is you've got all these people who are getting kicked off of this and say they want to go work. Where are they getting the jobs, right? Where are they going to work? And I don't know, maybe there's jobs out there. We've talked to a lot of people like Nelson Staffing, Star Staffing, and they've said, well, there's jobs out there. People just don't want to work. I question how many jobs there really are out there for $50,000 a year right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and then that goes into sort of the forbearance issue, Chelsie, and what you're seeing in your field, right? Because if people if they're only making $50,000 a year on unemployment, I mean, we've seen that there's an increase in rates in people who aren't paying their mortgages, right? So, where's that going to go with the market?
Well, if we don't get this additional stimulus package or the extra 600, we're definitely going to run into an issue with that. Back when we started this, we were breaking records at 5 million households were in forbearance, and that was back in like late March, early April. So we've had some people be able to pay and pick up on their mortgage payments, but I think that was largely due to the benefits that we had, those unemployment benefits that people were getting. So without those benefits, we're definitely going to see a forbearance and a foreclosure issue. I don't believe that we're going to run into a housing crash, but I do believe that we're definitely going to see some issues with people not being able to keep up with their mortgage and having to do forbearances, which really affects the overall mortgage and real estate industry. The more forbearances there are, the less money there is to loan out for new purchases. And it's just kind of this revolving door that we're going to run into.
So where does the equity idea come into this? So if, the idea now is, we won't have a housing crisis or crash like we did before because more people have like 20% equity in their home at least, right? Mm-hmm. So are you thinking that's still going to help insulate things and keep real estate moving forward?
Yeah, I think that that'll help hugely. We don't have those scammy loans that people were getting where they couldn't even afford the loans. People got the loans because they could afford the loans now. Mm-hmm. I think our huge issue that we're running into in the real estate industry right now is the lack of inventory. There's not enough inventory for the buyer demand right now. And that's huge. And if you look at real estate as a whole, you'll really see how much money real estate funnels into the economy as a whole between, real estate agents, title agents, insurance, home inspectors, appraisers, contractors. There's a lot of money that's to be made from real estate when you actually look at where the money gets dispersed. So the less houses there are for people to buy, the less money that's going out into the economy.
Well, and isn't this a traditional kind of slow time annually because people, for whatever reason, they're getting their kids back in school?
Yeah. So normally, summertime when people are going back to school, we really see the real estate market slow down. We're not really seeing a slowdown due to lack of buyers. We're seeing a slowdown because there's just not enough inventory. Mm-hmm. I mean, the buyers are out there. Last week we were in 2% interest rates, historic lows. The buyers are taking advantage of that. We have the urban flight syndrome a couple weeks ago where we have all those city people wanting to buy houses with more space, come to Sonoma, come to Petaluma, come to these areas. And I'll give you an example. Sonoma Valley right now has 106 houses for sale. 106 across the valley. Glen Ellen, Kenwood, Sonoma. That's what they have. We had 16 sell from last Tuesday when I talked to you guys to today. 16 sold, and we have 33 currently under contract. So those numbers speak for themselves and showing you how fast things are going. And I just, I don't know. I think it's really hard not to get optimistic when you look at the past 3 months and the strides we've made. But also, it's hard not to feel down and see just kind of the uncertainty that we're looking at in our future with evictions and stimulus packages and the fight and the politics and the COVID cases going up. It's hard not to feel uncertain about the future, but also to feel optimistic about the progress we've made in the last 3 months.
Well, and you've actually really seen that play out, and I'll just pull up a screen real quick to show the viewers here. You've seen that uncertainty play out in the gold markets. Yesterday, we hit an all-time high in gold, and that's huge, right? So you can see we're right at 1957. We're knocking on the door of $2,000 an ounce in gold. And that's really driven from the uncertainty, from the money printing that's going on. You've also seen silver get a huge bid up. And just to give you that, you're looking at a 10-minute chart, but if I put this on the daily, you can just see that huge run up that we've on the weekly chart. And we've seen what we call that a bid. We've seen a bid on the trade. You've seen gold. Look at the chart on gold. And we just broke that all-time high there. And what we've also seen is we're starting to get some pretty significant movement in Bitcoin. Bitcoin's actually the number one performing asset this year.
Daren, do you think that has to do with the national coin shortage that we're seeing right now?
No, the coin shortage, I think, is just more because there's not a lot of, so typically, you think of restaurants and these different institutions that move more hard currency dollars. They haven't been open, right? So it hasn't been circulating as much. And there's also some that are saying that the mint is actually trying to get people to stop using physical dollars and coins and use credit cards and stuff. One just makes sense, right? You think that a dollar, and you take a dollar right here, right? We got our $20 bill. Well, how many people have touched that $20 bill?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a potential way to spread virus, right? Because you can't clean it. I noticed Dutch Brothers Coffee near where I live, they don't even take cash tender, coin tender anymore. And I think you're going to see that movement. People are going to get more and more comfortable with digital currency. So that's driving to things like Bitcoin, where people are comfortable with that as a store of value, right? And as you see that movement, you'll see stores less and less likely to take physical tender. That's going to be an interesting transition. So I think it's a couple things. I think it's the COVID situation and just people not being open as much and moving money. And then secondly, I think there's actually legitimate policy getting instituted that trying to push people away from physical dollars and coin because of the potential infectious nature of it. But anyway, it's really just a lot, the S&P has been, rather boring lately. There hasn't been a lot going on. What's been really interesting is the gold trade, the silver trade, the Bitcoin trade. All those things have been really powering through right now. I'll just show you a couple other charts and then I'll jump off the charts here. Not to be death by charts today, but something that's really important is this dollar. The dollar value has been going down significantly. And we broke 94 yesterday, and you can see this candlestick, which was a test up into $94. That was an important test of resistance. And that has huge impacts, right? It's actually good for middle America if the dollar becomes less valuable because we can produce more goods overseas and export. It's easier to export. But it does bring into question with gold going up, with silver going up, with Bitcoin going up, and the dollar decreasing. Is this the beginning of the end for the dollar as a reserve currency around the world, right? So there's some really tectonic shifts happening economically right now that we're all watching and wondering. It does help the current administration if the dollar value decreases because it really stimulates the economy initially, but it could be a beginning of the end. Another thing that's really interesting to look at is the Treasury, the 10-year Treasury. You can see this red bar right here. We're down at 5.79. So that's 0.579%. If you give your money to the feds for 10 years, they're only going to pay you 0.579. That's a risk-off trade. It's also telling you that there's a lot of demand for treasuries. People want that security and that safety of the U.S.-backed Fed. Not only are they buying it, the Fed is buying their own treasuries. So do that loop math in your head for a little bit and think about it. But also that there's a lot of people buying treasuries because they want that security and that safety. The Fed's only got to pay them 0.579% to take their money for 10 years. That's stupid. So the reality is because that's really low, that means there is a sense that there's a broader risk situation overall in the economy. However, given the way the Fed's meeting today, they're going to come out tomorrow with their Kabuki theater. As a trader kind of protege that I follow calls it, and that they come out and do their song and dance. They're going to be delicate with the market. They're probably not going to rock any boats because it is delicate right now. But last time we got two big sell-offs here, June 15th and June 29th. The Fed magically came out and said, oh, we're buying corporate bonds on the 15th. And then on the 29th said, oh, and here's what we bought. So if this market falls apart, expect that kind of behavior from the Fed. That's all I got on the chart, so I don't kill you all. But a lot going on, but really the story is gold, silver, Bitcoin right now, and we're in a channel in the S&P.
A lot of stuff happening, and most importantly, it's almost August. How did that even happen? I mean, where did our year go? But
right.
You guys, thank you for sharing that information. I know everyone's really wondering what's going to happen with evictions and and the stimulus package and where's that 600 going. So, and for everyone watching, we would love to get your feedback, leave comments. If you're a business, we'd love to hear from you how you pivoted during the pandemic, what's going on. You can find us on Facebook now. We have a Facebook page. And of course, like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can bring you the latest and greatest every week. And of course, facts over fear always.
And hey, if there's topics you want us to cover, to dig into, and whether it's a local Sonoma topic or whether it's a specific, more global topic, put a comment below. We check them out. We'll listen and get on someone on here if we don't know how to help or answer those questions. We'll find someone who does. Thanks again. Have a great week, everybody.
Bye, guys.